Okay, in the first major segment of your project, what you're going to be asked to do is, in the author context, is reflect on Oscar Wilde's aestheticism and how it exhibited itself in his life and in his writing, and what the consequences of that were to him. So we've talked about this in class, and it's also in the bio sheet that is in Canvas if you would prefer to read it, but just some things to highlight some things that we've discussed. So of course it exhibited itself visibly, physically, in his lavish clothing, kind of outrageous clothing styles, very much not what was in fashion for the day. His lavish decorations in his home, even his writing style. We've talked about that. His language is very deliberately flowery, a little bit over the top in a lot of ways, very descriptive, very crafted. The dialogue is not even meant to read the way that people actually talk. You can see that he's got those epigrams and those witticisms and all of that incorporated just completely throughout. The plot lines of his stories, particularly his plays, are written in a way that almost parody life, and they're full of irony, full of twists of fate, very playful though, not usually dark or serious. This novel is very different from his normal style. Most of his plays really mock, in a lighthearted sort of way, conventional morals, and they treat them as absurd, or highlight the absurdity of them, particularly as they are exhibited in the upper classes. Also, one way, remember, that Wilde was not aesthetic was in his own appearance. Sorry, my phone is... he was a very unattractive person, partly because of contracting syphilis as a young man, and his teeth went black. And he was described by many as being tall and flabby. So he did not take good care of himself, and so he was not aesthetic in a lot of ways to look at. But he tried to make up for that, I think, with his clothing and enormous flowers in his lapel and things like that. His lifestyle, as we discussed, resembled Dorian's a lot in some ways. He got kind of caught into the culture of prostitutes, both male and female, drugs, a lot of thrill seeking. He also lived a double life. He was married and had 2 sons. And he was married at the time that he had that passionate love affair with Lord Alfred. So some of the consequences of the way he chose to live his life, as we mentioned, syphilis, illnesses like that. He lost his marriage toward the end of his life after being arrested and after being charged with gross indecency and sodomy. He went to prison for those crimes and was, disgraced in his reputation, pretty much a ruined man at that point. And he died a very sad and lonely death. Tried to reconnect with friends and former lovers, and even tried to reconcile with his wife, but just kind of, died sick and relatively young and kind of bleak. So that is really how his hedonism and his aestheticism played out in his life. It showed up in his style, his fashion. It showed up in his writing style, his storylines, and in his hedonistic lifestyle. And it caught up with him in the end. And, part of it, the tragedy, is because of the time that he lived in. It was not a time where he was free to be who he wanted to be legally. But on the other hand, he also kind of was a man of great excesses. So anyway, do what you want with that, and good luck.